want your name to be?
My name book is Daniel Bruce Levin, but I am Danny. When you talk to me, I'm just Danny. I'm not old enough to be Daniel Bruce Levin.
Okay, that's fair. Daniel. I don't even know what to call you. What are you? A coach? A motivational human being? That's what I put out there is, and when I broadcast the announcement. But what do you do?
I really help people hold this. I hold the space for people to be themselves. And what I realized, Jesse, in going around the world, I've had a really beautiful opportunity to be friends with and sit around the dinner table with some of the richest people in the world. I've met their children, I've met their parents. But I've also had the beautiful, sacred opportunity to sit on cardboard with some of the poorest people in the world. One of the things, and call them my friends too, and sit and talk with them and discuss in both situations what they're doing, what problems have, how do we solve, what are the answers, what are the questions. And one of the most amazing things I've seen, Jesse, which is really beautiful, and it's so simple. Every single one of us, no matter what color our skin, no matter what religion we practice, no matter what border we live, no matter what philosophy we want to ourselves, no matter how rich or poor we all want the same exact thing. We want to be loved and accepted. We want to be listened to and heard. We want to be acknowledged and validated. And I realized I could do that. I have a college degree to do it. I don't need to be ordained in some sort of religious organization. I don't need to join some group to do it. I can just do my best to hold the space where I can love and accept another human being completely on their terms. And what I found is when I love and accept people, I'm 65 years old. In my 65 years, no one has ever said to me, Danny, you must agree with me. Because when I love and accept them and I listen to them and validate them and I acknowledge them, they understand that I have my own point of view. And it's enough for them that they feel heard and listened to. And I can do that. And we all can do that. And that's so what I really do is I help people to learn how to listen to other people, to love and accept other people. And I just hold the space for them to be loved and accepted. And in that space, amazing things happen.
That's an interesting perspective, because the society we live in, especially right now, with all of the social media going on, the world going on, a lot of society has become very self-centered, and it's my way or the highway, and stuff like that. And like you said, everybody wants to be accepted, but how do we go about doing that in our daily lives? How do we get past our own bull manure and let ourselves do that?
So what the Mosaic taught me in writing it is that there are 4 practices. The first practice is the most important thing. It's connection to ourselves. We think connection is this, me and you talking together. But there are 3 practices that come before that. That's the 4th stage. The first one is connection to self. The next one's connection to something bigger than self. The next one is being connected to a purpose. And then, and only then, can we have a real connection with each other. But connection to self starts it all. And it sounds so Pollyannish to say it. But Jesse, if you think about, if I think about my life over the course, you said you want to get behind the real person into the real guy. Let me be really vulnerable and honest with you, because that's how I am all the time, okay? Most of my life, I've spent my life doing this. I've spent my life trying to literally destroy everything that I create. I try to put myself down. I try and sabotage everything I try and do. I say I'm going to do this, and then I say, no, I'm not good enough to do that, or I can't do that, or how will I ever do that? And so literally I'm hitting myself all the time. And after getting hit a few times, I'm not stupid. I put up a little wall to protect myself. Okay. Now, if you can see, that wall is pretty close to my face. And the problem is, I don't only hit myself in my face. I hit myself in my chest, in my groin, in my legs, in my feet. I hit myself everywhere. And so that means I've built a silo of protection, a wall around myself about 3 inches away from me. And that's the world that I live in. So when I try and connect with you, chances are you've done the same thing too, but let's say you haven't. When I try and connect with you, you're not connecting with me. You're connecting with the wall that I've put around me to protect me from having any real deep, intimate connection with you. Because I'm scared of that you'll hurt me just like I hurt me. So the first step we have to take is we have to really take a good, honest look at ourselves. When I practice kindness to myself, when I no longer hit myself, there's no longer a need for this wall that I put up to protect myself from hitting myself. And so suddenly my world has grown exponentially from 3 millimeters or 3 inches from my surroundings to that whole silo melting. Now I might look at you and say, wow, that's a scary mofo over there. I'm scared to death of that guy, right? And I might put up another wall out there.
Yep.
But here's the thing. I now know the key to melting down those walls. It's kindness. So if I come up to you and I'm scared to death of you, and you're saying stuff that really frightens me, I can say to you, hey, brother, listen to me. I want to really understand you. I want to listen to you. I don't want to judge you. I don't want to change you. I don't want to I just want you to hear what you're saying and why you're saying what you're saying. Can you, if I promise you I won't hurt you, would it be okay if we take one brick down of our wall between us?
Absolutely.
And let's see how that goes. If we're comfortable there, maybe we'll try and take another one and another one and another one. And we can keep the 3 walls behind us and on the sides of us, okay? But we at least have this opportunity now to allow ourselves to see each other and connect with each other. And as soon as I connect to you, everything you are opens up to me and everything I am opens up to you. And we become like a mosaic where one piece connects us to other pieces and our world grows exponentially. And it's so easy. It's so simple. It's not necessarily easy. It's a simple practice of kindness. First to myself. Because I can be kind all I want to you, but if my wall's still up around myself, we'll never have a connection.
It's an interesting concept. Everybody has these walls, no matter who we are. And I think these walls are created from us hitting ourselves and are created from other people hitting us as well, right? Yeah. And they start at childhood, right? As soon as you're a little kid and your mom or dad says, quit being a little meh, right? That's when it really begins. And because the mom and dad's supposed to be just love all the time, but of course, to raise a child, it can't just be love. There has to be discipline, but there has to be a way to do that doesn't affect the child adversely in a bad way. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, here's the interesting thing. When we're kids, at first, when we're babies, we take our food and we smush it all over our face, and people start laughing. They go, oh, isn't he adorable? Look at what he's doing. You fast forward 6 months and suddenly we're getting yelled at for doing that. So the same thing that was once a moment, a way we got the love of our parents and got the love of our people around us. Now they say, oh God, what are you, like a moron? Why would you do that? Right? And the rules change as we get older because they have to.
Yep.
And we have to adapt to those rules changing, but nobody takes the time to understand, to us. Nobody says to us, Danny, when you were a kid and smushing face, it was so adorable. But now at a certain level, you're 6 months old, 8 months old, a year old, 35 years old. It doesn't look good anymore for you to smush food on, right? And we just need to take time to be with each other and connect with each other and really talk to each other and listen to each other and hear what's going on.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Can I tell you a couple stories?
Go ahead.
I know what we're talking about in that regard from a very personal, intimate story. I had the honor of having a 30-year-old developmentally delayed daughter. She was born, I was the man. I said to my wife, I don't ever change diapers, just as long as you know that. I'm a guy. I don't do that. 30 years later, I'm still changing diapers because my passed when she was 8 years old.
Mm-hmm.
One of the greatest gifts she's taught me And I didn't think she was a blessing my whole life, because it was really hard, because she doesn't speak like you and I speak. So when she says something, most people don't understand her. Because I've been with her so long, I sort of get the nuances of what she's trying to say. And we're not talking about Kant and Descartes. We're talking about, do I want to eat? Do I need to go to the bathroom? Am I comfortable? Too hot? Too cold? Basic human needs. When she speaks to me and I don't understand her, what she'll do is she'll yell. And it's normally not the volume that makes me not understand her, it's the clarity of her words. And sometimes, to her credit, when she yells, she says it a little bit differently. And I go, oh, I get it now. But most time not. Right? Most time it's just now yelling something I don't understand. When she yells and I don't understand, she tantrums. That could be in the middle of a restaurant, in the middle of a walk in the town. It could be at home when we're by ourselves. It could be over at a friend's house. It could be in the middle of a bath. It could be driving in a car. When she tantrums and she doesn't get understood, then she tries to attack. She'll try and either rip my shirt or bite me. Now, I'm a pretty smart guy, and I tested with a genius IQ in my life, so I'm a pretty smart guy. But this went for 15 years. Not every day, but when it happened, on the days that it happened, it could be 5, 10, 15 times a day. Finally, in the midst of her rage one day, I just was fed up. I couldn't have it. I couldn't have it anymore. I said, Elisa, you know I love you and I want to hear what you're saying, but I can't. Can you say it to me in a way where you don't use your words? You just communicate it to me in another. From the midst of her rage came this huge smile and in perfect English, she said, I am Daddy. I said, what do you mean you are Daddy? You're communicating to me in a way that is not using your words? She said, I am. I said, tell me how you're doing that. And she put her finger to the side of her head like this. And I said, you little son of a gun, are you putting thoughts into my head? And her smile now became contagious, outrageous laughter. And I laughed together, must have been 5 minutes, but it felt like it was 5 months. Just contagious laughter. As soon as she stops, I was still laughing, and she caught my laugh and kept going. It was the first time in her life she had actually been understood. Do you know, from that moment on, she's never yelled, she's never tantrumed, and she's never attacked. Because now when she isn't heard, she just goes like this. But here's even the more interesting thing, Jesse. In the work that I do with people, whether it's CEOs of companies or employees, whether it's teachers or their classrooms, whether it's the military or their leaders, whether it's government officials or their cabinets, every single one of them follows the same actions that my daughter follows. When they speak and they don't get heard, they yell. When they yell and they don't get heard, they try and create a disruption. They tantrum. They try and create chaos. They try and make something not work. When their disruption doesn't work, they try to attack. That could be shooting in a town square. It could be blowing up a building. It could be trying to ruin a reputation. It could be trying to break up a marriage. We all do the same things. And so the greatest lesson I ever learned of how to bring unity to a group of people is from a 30-year-old developmentally delayed kid. All everybody wants is to be heard. When we don't listen to it, it just intensifies. Yell, tantrum, attack. If we would go back and just retrofit it, imagine if a Democrat and a Republican in the world we live in today would actually sit down and say, hey, I'm not trying to find fault with you. Let me just understand what you want to say. Let me explain to you what I want to say. Let me see if there's any common ground. In a mosaic, most pieces don't connect side to side like this. Sometimes it's just one tiny little corner. A small part of the piece connects to the small part of the other piece. But it's enough to keep the mosaic whole. It's enough to make the mosaic work. That's all we need to find. What's that one connection point? Where if we make that connection with people, rather than look for all the differences that exist between us and try and knock down everybody because they think differently than us, our world would change. I believe wars would end if we would just listen to people. I believe disagreements would end if we would listen to people. Because people don't want us to agree with them, they want us just to hear them and understand them.
That makes sense.
I love it because you went from that's a different perspective to now that makes sense.
Right?
So, but it does. It's simple, right?
It with society the way it is, most of society doesn't listen to anyone, including themselves.
Yes.
They don't even. You talk about Republicans and Democrats. I'll go back to that. A large portion of, and we don't talk about religion or sex on the show normally, or anything else, or politics normally, but we're going to probably break two of those rules. We look at the Republicans, and if you look at a large mass of the following that they have, they're fundamental Christians. And if you look at the teachings of most religions, any religion realistically, the base teachings is to love each other, right? And Christianity specifically is to give a certain aspect to other people to make sure that they are taken care of, if that makes sense. Be it the giving of food to the poor or whatever else. And you look at the Democrats, and what they want to do in a lot of cases is these social programs, which would be considered giving the bread to the poor if it was looked at that way. And you talk about joining the mosaic, and I think that a lot of human beings get caught up in their own stuff, and they don't want to help people anymore. And I think that's really what you're talking about here, is allowing people to make that connection.
I would reframe it. I think everybody wants to help people. Our ways of doing it are different, and we focus on the differences rather than saying, like, I know Republicans want to help you, but I know Democrats want to help you. What commonality can we find that we can just start working together to help each other? Religions want to help each other, but some of more people have been killed in the name of religion than in the name of, that have been, so how do we find commonality rather than being so convinced that our way is right? One more story?
Yeah, we have time.
I said I had this beautiful opportunity of being in the homes of the richest of the rich and the poorest, and on the street corners with the poorest of the poor. One of the people that touched me the most was a homeless man that I met on the street corners of San Diego. When I first came up to him, he was like a scared animal. And I sat down next to him. He said, "This is my place," almost violently. Like, you're not going to get my collection here. I said, "Brother, I just want to sit with you. I'll triple anything that's in your, anything that comes to you, I'll give you triple it or 5 times or whatever it is. I'm happy to give you money. I just want to sit with you and talk to you." Well, it took a certain amount of time to break down the resistance. We were there about maybe an hour or so. And we had one of the most beautiful conversations, and he just shared with me some of the most intimate personal things. And at the end of the time that I felt I could take with him, or just not that I could take, but it was time for me to go. Just like this podcast will be over soon, right? And I said to him, "Corey, you watch people walk by you every day. If you could tell them one thing that would help the world become a better place, what would you want to tell them if they would listen to you?" He didn't miss a beat. He knew his answer immediately. He said, "Danny, I would ask these people to take 10 minutes out of the course of their lifetime and just go up to somebody that they don't know and sit with them and ask them, 'How are you?' And then just listen to their response. Just be there with them and listen." I said, "Corey, why is that so important to you? Like, I get it. What a beautiful thing. But you're homeless. You don't have food. You don't have shelter. You don't have anything. Why would that be the most important thing?" And he said, Danny, I have to tell you, you don't know me. You only know me about an hour. But about 3 months ago, I was sitting here in the same spot. People would pass by and they would yell at me and curse at me and treat me like an animal. Other people would come and spit on me or punch me or kick me. And they would laugh at me and just treat me with such disrespect and so like I was somebody that was going to hurt them, and I would never hurt anybody. And I thought, what am I doing? Like, this isn't a life worth living for anybody. I'm not helping anybody. I'm not doing anything good. People hate me. The best thing I could do is this evening when it gets dark is go around the corner and just take my life. I'm of no value. I'm only causing people pain. So I'm going to go around the corner and kill myself. 2 minutes after I said that story to myself, a man came and put his hand on my shoulder and said, "How are you, brother?" And I looked him in the eye and tears started falling from my eyes. Big, those crocodile tears that you just cry when you feel someone might be interested. And he just sat down next to me. And he said, "Tell me, I'm here for you. I don't have anywhere to go. Just tell me what you feel, what you need to say." Corey looked at me and he said, "Danny, you know, it only took about 10 minutes. It didn't take a long time. But after 10 minutes of just like letting it all out, I realized I could no longer go this evening around the corner to kill myself because someone actually cared enough about me to spend 10 minutes and just listen to me. And that made me feel so much more valuable and so much more alive." He said, "That man has no idea he saved my life that day." And here's the beauty of an action that has multiple responses. They call it the butterfly effect. Corey has no idea that his story touched me so deeply that on every podcast that I'm on every media show that I go on to, on every talk that I give, in every workplace that I go, I tell that story because the impact of that story is so dramatic. Can you imagine what would happen in our world if those people that yell at each other would just take 10 minutes and listen to each other? We have no idea what impact our actions have. Corey doesn't know he inspired me to take a trip around the world, to do exactly that and film that.
Mm-hmm.
My goal is to film what people think and how, and what people would say what the voices of the voiceless would say if anybody would listen, and share that with people. He has no idea. We have no idea what it would mean to somebody if we went into our workplaces and said to the guy who ships our product, to the guy that cleans our floors, to the guy that heads our marketing department, to the woman who runs our company, "Tell me how you're doing," and we just listened. What would that do to our families, to our kids, to our teachers, to our students? If we did it 10 minutes in the course of a lifetime, it's not a whole lot. Something we can all do.
Mm-hmm.
What I learned from the Mosaic, the book that I wrote, because I was a little bit of a snob before that. I only mixed with a certain level of people that were high enough vibration spiritually. I only ate in restaurants where I was sure the vibration of the food was going to be good and sit with me, you know.
Yeah.
I was a snob. The Mosaic is about a boy who loses his parents 2 years apart on the same day. And when he asks the adults where his parents are, they tell him they're in a place called heaven. So he sets out in search of that place called heaven. As a boy, he just starts walking. But the people he meets along the way are not the rabbis and the priests and the shamans and the gurus and the swamis and the medicine men and the aborigines elders. The people he meets are a road worker and a blind woman, a homeless man and a trash man, a gardener and a waitress, and a street artist. Common, ordinary people. And he thinks to himself, why am I sitting with these people? Like, why am I being led to these people? I'm looking for heaven. But he says, I'm with them. Why don't I just listen to their story? In 100% of the cases, After listening to a person tell his story, the person he saw was an entirely different person than the one he first approached. And what he realized in that is, hold it, I don't see the world the way the world is. I see the world the way I am. What would happen if I stopped seeing what I saw and would allow myself to see the world as it really is? At that moment, he looked over to his right and he saw a monk unzipping the sky and inviting him into a parallel reality where he met the wise one who was the keeper of the mosaic. Hopefully, as any good trailer for a book or movie, I'm going to leave it there so that people might want to pick up the book and hear what actually happened from that point on.
There's a lot there to digest, to be quite honest.
Tell me.
So, of course, I grew up poor, like dirt poor, like no running water. We crapped in an outhouse, basically. That's how I grew up. Not a lot of food on the table, but there was love there. And there's, they always tell you, never forget where you came from. And on this podcast, and what I do normally, I do hypnosis across Western Canada. That's my real job. And it's obviously afforded me an okay place to live compared to where I grew up. But most people have no idea about that past and the ability that I have to go back to that if I have to. Most of society could never do that.
Yeah.
And they'd never be able to understand where that person is inside of me. But I'm not even sure where I'm going.
Well, let's go where you are. Never's a long time, Jesse. And I think that when my dad died with one suit in his closet and a mountain full of debt that he left to my mom because he just wanted us to have everything we wanted, but he couldn't afford it. He was my idol. He was my everything. He's who I wrote the book about. It was his death that started my whole life on this journey. And my mom died 2 years later on the same day because she was so in love with him also. But we have to understand that our roots make us who we are. They don't detract from who we are. I grew up in a lower middle class family where we had nothing. And that's my badge of honor, because what we did have is we sat around the dinner table, and as little as there was, my mom made it seem like there was a lot. And we talked with each other and we laughed with each other. My dad never hit me, but if I did something wrong, he went to his belt and he said, "Do I need to take off my belt?" And we went, "No, Dad, no, God, don't take off." But we had no idea what the belt felt like, right? Because he never did anything to us. But he was an amateur boxer. And so anytime we had a disagreement, my brother, who was 4 years older than he sent us downstairs to the carpet. And he said, "This is the ring, put on the gloves and just work it out." Well, it sounds like a great idea, but when somebody's 8 and somebody's 4, I got literally beaten to a pulp, right? So I would run in after him and throw kamikaze shots and then run around. And he said, "No, you have to stay on the carpet." I said, "No way. I'm not stupid." But my dad would referee those things and just watch us and we would laugh about it at the end of the day. And so fights became moments where we just enjoyed each other and laughed because we saw the absurdity of it. We need to get to that place again.
Yeah.
Where we just accept each other as we are without all the facade. When we came on in the green room, you said, "I want to get to the person behind the person." To me, I was never smart enough to keep two personas. I just realized I don't know who I have to be with who, so why don't I just try and be myself? If people like me, they like me. If they don't, that's okay. They have every right to like me or not like me. That's their choice. My job is to just like myself enough that I can show up here as authentically as I can, share with you my life and and hopefully have you share your life with me. And in that, we become better because we do stuff together.
Yep.
That's the mosaic. The goal for me of the book that I wrote and the work that I want to do now is it's time to reconnect the disconnected world. There's only one way we go if we continue to go where we're going. The momentum only gets stronger and deeper. Who wants that world? I end my podcast by asking people all the time, is this the world that you always dreamed of handing over to your children's and your children's children? And for a while, like 97% of the people would say, no, this isn't at all the world. But now I'm getting more people that say, yeah, there's possibilities here, there's things here. And so we have to think, what could we do to lean the world towards those possibilities rather than continuing the momentum of the hatred and the vile and the disagreement and the yelling and the shouting at each other? It all starts here. The minute I change myself, we're all connected. We all change. It's just that simple. It doesn't mean it's easy, but it's simple.
So I have a question that
Please.
we're going over time, obviously.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. Hello, one viewer. So the question I have is, as our generations have progressed from cavemen or from wherever we've come from, societal pressure has obviously changed humanity's perspectives on things. Things have gotten faster and faster and faster. Do you think that back when we were in little cottages, wherever we come from, right, and almost tribes people, do you think that there was the type of connection that you're talking about in the book where the pretenses were lost and we were seeing the real people at the time, almost the family unit, and it was a lot more connected, if that makes sense, in a good way?
Yeah, in some ways, I understand there's a sort of a nostalgia to the time when we were smaller, when our worlds were smaller, when we knew less about each other, and we were more communally driven, where our communities were the sense of everything we are. But look at it. Who wants to go back to that time when people's life expectancy was half the time that it is now, where people got illnesses and we didn't have cures for those illnesses? We are living in the most beautiful time the world has ever known, and we're living in the most connected time. Something can happen 10,000 miles away. We know about it within 3 seconds because of the connections we have. It isn't the world that needs to change. It's the meaning we give to the world we live in that needs to change. You know that beautiful book by Viktor Frankl? Viktor Frankl, called Man's Search for Meaning. Viktor Frankl was in the Holocaust. And he wrote a book about the most beautiful days of his life were in the Holocaust, were in those chambers in the Holocaust. And people said to you, what are you, crazy? 6 million people died in there. What are you talking about? And he said, what I realized is everything in the world is neutral. The meaning we give it makes it whether we think it's good or bad. I had some of the most intimate moments with people that I ever had in those Holocaust moments. I sat holding people who were on their last breath. I sat encouraging people and was encouraged by people I didn't even know to just take one more step because otherwise I would be killed. Some of the most intimate connections I made were in that place. That was the most beautiful place that could ever be. But I bet most of the people that were there would not say those words. Certainly I wouldn't have said it if I were there. I would go, what a terrible time to live in. So we can always think, wasn't it better when? But I guarantee you, if you brought 100 people from that time to this time, they would go, whoa, look at this world. How cool is this? Right? This is a great place to be. We just have to remember not to lose sight of who we are in the world around us, because it's only going to get more complicated. AI is going to start to take over some of the jobs we have.
Yep.
Forget about AI. You said you deal with weird things. There's intergalactic intelligence, right? I mean, we can't be the only planet out here that exists. So we've gone from being the smartest species in the world to already being the second smartest, with AI being way smarter. And there's going to be another global intelligence, universal intelligence, that's going to fit in here, and we're going to be like number 3, unless we sort of figure out how to connect it, all of us, to each other. I just heard something. This is way off track, but I just heard something. A podcast with Elon Musk.
The Neuralink.
The Neuralink. And I have a developmentally delayed daughter. And I thought, oh my God, within 5 or 10 years, they might be able to put a little Neuralink in the back of her brain, and she might be able to speak and function and do all that stuff. I mean, like, can you imagine that? Can you imagine the miracle of me being able to sit, if I'm still alive, with my daughter and have a real conversation and find out what she thinks and what she loves and I mean, we're living in miraculous times. These are not times to run away from. These are times to embrace, but to continue to have our humanity in it. We haven't lost our humanity because of machines. We've lost our humanity because we've lost our humanity. And it's time for us to just come back to ourselves. On my website, danielbrucelevin.com, the first page says, I just would love to reintroduce you to yourself, because so many people have forgotten who they are. All those silos that we build, we paint them with pretty pictures so the world thinks we're what's on the walls around us, but that's not who we are. It's time for us to get to know ourselves again. And that's a lot. When you ask, what's my work? What do I do? How do I define myself? I introduce people to themselves again. How can you function in a world when you're not here? All of us are wanting to be these super extraordinary superheroes, extraordinary. Everybody's talking about their superpowers. Well, superpowers aren't very sustainable. Even Superman takes off his costume every once in a while. I think extraordinary things happen when you bring extraordinaries together. Ordinary is the most beautiful thing in the world. It's the sunrise. It's the buds coming on the tree. It's springtime. It's the beauty of a mountain and a lake. The lake doesn't try to be the mountain, or the mountain doesn't try and be the lake. Day doesn't try and be night. Night doesn't try to be day. It's ordinary. There's an evolution of the world through the ordinariness of it. It's the most beautiful thing in the world. But somehow we think ordinary is ugly. Ordinary is, no, I don't want to be ordinary. God forbid. I don't want my kids to be ordinary. I want them to be extraordinary. And so extraordinary holds a bar for us that's not sustainable. So we always feel not good enough because we can't maintain it. We always feel like, how will we ever do that? We're nothing, because we're holding this fake bar that we have to be. Why not just enjoy being ourselves?
The ordinary times. One of the biggest pleasures in my life is feeding my children strawberries from my garden. And it was instilled in me from my grandfather. It wasn't even, he didn't feed me strawberries. What he did is he showed me how to sharpen a knife on a hay rake. And it wasn't the fact that we were sharpening a knife on a hay rake. It's that I sat there with Grandpa and I built that real thing that was important to him and important to me at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's why I love feeding my kids strawberries, is because they help me grow them. And it's that connection.
You couldn't say it any better. What a beautiful, beautiful moment. And we've all had moments like that for sure. That shows how beautiful the ordinary is.
Yep. Who could ever think a strawberry would be one of the greatest memories I have, or a hay rake for that matter?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but in the same way you have it about a strawberry, I have it about sitting and using an adding machine with my dad in his office. because it's the connection that we feel, the connection of that one thing, and what we felt when my dad would take me to work and let me sit at his desk, and I felt like a big guy. I felt like
Yep.
some important person sitting at my dad's desk and playing on his adding machine.
Yep. That is exactly it. So I'm gonna get you to plug your stuff. So where can people find your book? We're about to end. I've got 2 questions afterward, but they're the stupid question. We're gonna ask you the stupid questions anyway, if that's okay.
There are no stupid questions, so it's all good.
Where can people find you?
You can reach me at danielbrucelevin.com. You can get my book there. Amazon, because of COVID-19, is shipping everything to and so books are being delayed. So if you want to get my book there, I'll sign a copy of it. I'll give you the Be Kind to You bracelet. I'll include shipping, and it's for $25. You can get that. You get it everything. Amazon is selling the book by itself for $17, I think now, and adding shipping to it, unless you're a Prime person. And so you get a few more things, and you get a signed copy. And you'll get it tomorrow, or you'll get it the next day, because I'll just ship it out that quickly.
Okay. And that's the only place people can find you?
Well, all my social media is there. That you can find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, but all my links are there, and you'll see it on both those places. You also see it. Go to the Mosaic on that. If you go to danielbrucelevin.com, there's a link to the mosaiconline.com, which is another website that you'll see. But it's so easy. You go to one place, and then if you're interested, you click on what you're interested in, and it'll take you there.
And your services, are you still doing the coaching for corporations and things like that as well?
Totally.
Awesome.
Totally.
So corporate people, that's my real job. I work corporate market all the time. So if corporate people see this, hire Danny. The last 2 questions I have is, I ask it in every interview. It's kind of a silly question. If you could be any animal in the world, what animal would you be? And that's usually my icebreaker at the beginning. But I figured we got pretty deep here, so let's do it at the end.
If I could be any animal in the world, I'm going to say I think I'd like to be a dog, because our dog, we have a beautiful golden retriever. That guy gets more love than any human being I know. And he just walks from one person to another, and then when they're done, when they're fed up with him, he goes to another, and then they just pet him and love him and do it. And then he goes to another one, and he gets the same thing. He walks out. People on the street, when we're walking, they might never say hello to me, but when they see him, they just, oh my God, look how beautiful this dog is, and I just want to pet him. And what's his name? And his name's #. And so it's just, we're so kind to animals. There's so many other animals that I would love to be, but I think just because he's current in my mind right now, that would be the one I would choose.
Okay. And the last question I have is, one of the most important things we can do right now is take care of ourselves. So other than this interview, because let's face it, this is the most fabulous thing anybody can do. What's one thing that you've done for yourself today that has made you happy, other than this interview?
It's the same thing I've done every day for 45 years without missing. It's to take time away from the day. I wake up early in the morning, and I sit before the world wakes up, in just the quiet of the world around me and the quiet of my own self. And I get to know myself. I call it meditation, but it can be contemplation. It can be anything people want. And there's something that happens when you just do a practice like that every single day over the course of time. Some days it's been for 14 hours a day. When I was in the monastery, it was 14 hours a day. Someday it's for 5 minutes, but I haven't missed a day. And the beauty is when you continue to do a practice that continually brings you inside, that the momentum of going inside is so much easier. So for those people who are suffering in isolation of COVID-19, I see it differently. Most of my life, I longed to have a time of seclusion, where as a monk, I could go and seclude myself away from the world and have time just to myself to contemplate my own self. Well, instead of being isolated, what would happen if you were secluded? What would happen if you used that time to go inside and to just get to know yourself? I put a post on Facebook If you can't go outside, why not go inside? I mean, it's just so obvious.
That makes sense. You know, something weird about me. I'm a very introverted person, and because of my background, I do some of the meditation stuff, not every day, but I've always been leave me alone and I'll leave everybody else alone. This show didn't exist before COVID, but I felt a personal drive inside to get it out there in the world because there's got to be that connection of some kind during this time. And even if it hurts me to do this normally, which it kind of does because I don't like people that much. I don't like to connect that much just because I like to be internalized. It's got to get out there in the world to help people. That's really the whole point of the show. And whether it's a Hollywood star or a coach like you, it's the same difference. We're all human beings.
So under separate conversation, because I don't want to take more time here, I would like to dive down underneath that statement you made, because my special ability is I hear people's soul without all their noise. And everything you said with your mouth, I know you believe. It's just not true in your soul.
I know.
Oh, and thank you for confirming that.
Yeah, I know.
And until we align soul and everything together, we live disjointed. So we tell stories about ourselves that just aren't true. Yeah. And we try and make those stories happen. Nobody who believes what you said about themselves just in those last 2 minutes starts a podcast for people to connect when they are isolated. They just wouldn't do that.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to end the show there before we get into some weird stuff. Everybody, this is Danny Levin, correct? I'm sorry, I forgot your last name. On that note, everybody, we end the show in the specific way. Danny, I need you to wave like this. Ready?
Hey.
Say bye.
Bye-bye.